Thanks. Hopefully everyone doesn't have a coma from lunch, because I was worried about being the person after lunch that had to speak. So hopefully you don't fall asleep. I'll try not to bore you, but I think similar to Dr. Poole, there is going to be some class participation. And I don't like to call on people, so hopefully people will share. Just listening to people's questions, obviously, it seems like people are open to talking. So I'm going to go over a little bit about me, just so you have a little bit more background if you don't know who I am. But this is the agenda that I was going to cover today. This is about not only just living with scleroderma. So those of you that are caregivers or supporters of someone who has scleroderma that you might be here with today, this is also valuable information for yourself. So this is something, I think Stephanie said it great, is that both the first two speakers, especially today, it's very symbiotic in what we're going to talk about here, because a lot of what you learned, especially from Dr. Hassett's talk about sort of mindset and things like that, are applicable to what we're going to talk about as it pertains to being able to achieve goals, even when you have when you're battling an illness such as scleroderma. So a little bit about me. I threw up some pictures just so you can get to know who I am a little bit. I am a food lover / ice cream lover, as you can see. I went to culinary school. It's funny, Stephanie didn't know this, but I just showed her my tattoo on my arm because it's a scleroderma tattoo. It's got the ribbon and a knife because I went to culinary school. She already alluded to the marathons. That's me running the London Marathon last year. And then that's my cat Popsicle, who every night I post a picture on my Instagram. It's called the Nightly Popsicle Pic because everyone loves to see her. So just a little bit more about me. I'm from New York originally. I was born on Long Island in Glen Cove. I lived in New York till I was about 25, 26, and then I moved out to the West Coast. I was an athlete my entire life. I wrestled in college at the Division I level. After I graduated, I worked in corporate America. I was a financial planning analyst. I was supposed to go to law school, which I didn't, and my parents were a little disappointed. I went to culinary school instead, worked in the hospitality industry, got into fitness because I needed to keep myself in shape, so I started teaching fitness classes. I currently work for Equinox Fitness Clubs, which you have a few in Chicago. I'm not here to sell you on Equinox. I'm also a manager for them. And then in 2017, I got diagnosed with scleroderma. I have limited systemic. It started with swelling in my hands, digital ulcers, GI issues, things along those lines. And initially when I was diagnosed, as probably a bunch of you, I would assume everyone took a little bit of a pause, and it was a pretty big quote unquote pill to take, if you will. And during the first few days of my diagnosis, I was depressed, and my wife at the time, she said to me, "You need to do something. You can't just mope around and be, in despair, upset, so on and so forth." So I realized, and I think Dr. Hassett said this today, it's about finding your passion and finding your purpose. And what I realized was my purpose was the disease was my purpose, to help people, not only people with scleroderma, but people battling chronic illness in general, live a healthier life or a more productive life or a happier life, and also to help those in society avoid getting chronic disease, because a lot of it is related to how we lead our lives. And for me, obviously we don't know how scleroderma officially starts, but I have an inclination as to why I was diagnosed and why it happened or how it manifested. I think most of it was stress related, the way I was working, and other stressors in my life. So part of my diagnosis and my desire to help others led me to go back to school at the age of 36, 37. I got my master's degree in public health, and then I just finished my doctorate last year. Both are focused in preventive care and lifestyle management in order to help people such as ourselves. And then I became a nationally board certified health and wellness coach. So I help people one-on-one, helping them, and even in groups, to help them uncover the true motivations and what they want to do to help make lifestyle changes to improve health outcomes. We may touch on this a little bit. I know in the last segment, someone had a question about diet and how it relates to like the autoimmune diet in particular, and how it can relate to the illness and things like that. And while I agree with what the doctor said about, if you have lung fibrosis, eating an autoimmune diet is not going to reverse that necessarily. But there's a lot of research that does show that nutrition plays a key role in how our diseases can manifest not just scleroderma, but also the quality of life that we can lead related to inflammation and things along those lines. So I have a big passion in that. And I'm also an adjunct professor right now in public health. So here's my question to all of you before we start today, and that's, what's your why? Obviously, we all have this amazing disease, right? It's this amazing disease we all love so much. But what's your why day to day? Why do you continue to fight? What keeps you going, aside from the fact that everyone just says, I want to live till I'm 80, 90, 100, whatever. There's got to be a why. This quote is really, I think, very poignant. It's hard to be what you have not yet seen, by T.D. Bishop. So here's my why. My why is to make a difference in the lives of individuals one step at a time, leading with compassion, empathy, and an understanding that we have our own unique challenges. Just because I have scleroderma and you have scleroderma affects us differently. So I would never compare my scleroderma to your scleroderma, nor would I compare myself with my autoimmune disease to someone who has another autoimmune disease. I don't think that's fair. But we also are humans and we judge one another sometimes. And everyone, as they say, is always fighting something. It doesn't matter what you have versus what they have. So that's my why. So here's my question to you, or rather my ask of you as we go through this today is, people are always looking for a cure in everything, right? So everyone wants a fast pill that's going to solve our problems. And don't get me wrong, I wish there was something that can cure anyone's symptoms or anyone's disease at this point. But the most important thing, and I think you all being here in these conferences and doing the walks and things like that, is being proactive. So I put this acronym together called PILL, Proactive in Living Longer. And it's about being an active participant in your life. And that's kind of what this conversation is about a little bit today. The thing I put here is, if you saw someone having a heart attack right now, if someone dropped down, hopefully no one does that, but what would you do? Would you just stand there? Would you try to help? Would you call 911? We tend to help other people, but we don't help ourselves a lot. And I think the key for us as patients especially is that we have to have the tools and resources where we can help ourselves first, so that we can help other people as well. So I want you to take a moment just to think. We're not going to discuss this yet, but we'll discuss other things. Is it easy for the average person to set goals and make lifestyle changes? I lied. How many people say yes? You can raise your hand. You don't have to shout it out. How many people say no? It's not easy. How many people are uncertain? Okay. And how many abstain? Okay. Remember, there's election in November. You shouldn't abstain. Vote. I'm not going to tell you to vote to work, but okay. Does anyone have an idea as why? Especially because the majority of people said no. It's hard, right? So why is that? Does anyone have or would like to share a reason? Fear. What's that? Fear. Fear. Yeah.
We're creatures of habit, and we don't like to change.
Ah, that's a good one. Creatures of habit don't like to change. What else? We'll take one more. Failure. Ah, that's probably the biggest one, and we're going to touch on that later. So here's a question, and now class participation is mandatory. What do you think about before you go to bed and when you wake up in the morning? What are you doing the next day? What's that?
To-do list.
To-do list. Let me rephrase it. How many of you have positive thoughts before you go to bed at night? It depends. When you wake up in the morning, what's the first thing? Is it positive or negative? It depends. You said positive? Good for you. I would say a majority of people, especially that are battling a chronic illness like scleroderma, go to bed thinking, most of the time, not all the time, but how horrible their day was, how bad they hurt, something along those lines. When they wake up in the morning, while you may have a positive thought, some people automatically go to, I hope today's not like yesterday. Does that make sense? Does anyone disagree with that? You can if you like. My answer is not always the right answer. I'll tell you if it is or not. I want you to keep that in mind, because positive thoughts, and Dr. Hassett talked about positive thinking and cognitive behavioral therapy and all of that sort of thing, is positive thinking can tremendously change the way in which you view the way you feel and how your day is going to be. And negative thoughts before bed are actually even more harmful than they are when you wake up first thing in the morning, because it sets your mind in a pattern. And if you go to bed thinking negative thoughts, which I have, I can't fall asleep at night, I'm anxious, I feel like my heart's racing, I think all like catastrophe and everything else is going to happen. So be mindful of what you say to yourself before you go to bed. Let's talk a little bit about motivation. So here's another great quote. If you want something in your life you've never had, you'll have to do something you've never done. Something else, if you agree or disagree, feel free to shout it out. But when we talk about motivation, there's two types of motivation. There's intrinsic motivation and there's extrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation is something we talk about when we think about a reward. I work hard at work, so I'm going to get a raise. Okay? Or what my parents did to me when I was a kid. If you hit a home run, we'll buy you a pound puppy. I was really big into stuffed animals when I was a kid. By the way, I'm 45, so scleroderma makes me look like I'm 20, but I'm 45. So some of my references, hopefully some of you will remember, but pound puppies were like the thing back in the day. They were so hard to get, some of them. They're almost like Cabbage Patch Kids and the ones with the little things in their stomach, the rainbow, whatever they were called. The Care Bears, thank you. So I was into pound puppies. My entire bed was filled with them, right? So what's the biggest problem with an extrinsic motivating factor? Short-lived, exactly.
And you need bigger stuff.
And you want something bigger, right? So when it comes to people in employment, they want a raise. They get a raise, but it's not enough money. They want more, right? That happens a lot of time, unless you get a tremendous amount of money, but that doesn't usually happen. I got a 3% raise at work this year. Can I get 4? Exactly. So when you think about it, extrinsic is only short-lived. So sometimes we even fall short of our goals because the extrinsic isn't worth the time, the effort, or the energy that we put forth into trying to reach those goals. The bigger source of motivation is intrinsic motivation, and that's what motivates you. That's why I asked you at the beginning, what's your why? Why is it that you come to these conferences? Maybe it's to get more knowledge. That's great. But how are you applying that knowledge? We just listened to every Latin kind of word and number mixed together for medications, which I don't even remember what's what half the time. But that's great. We get that knowledge, but some of that knowledge isn't going to be able to be put into practice for 10 to 20 years. You know, on average, it takes 15 years for a drug to come to market. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't hope for pharmaceuticals. I'm not saying that. We all take whatever we need to take and we listen to our doctors. That's really important. But intrinsic motivation is connected to your emotions. It's connected to what drives you. It's your source of energy, or joie de vivre, as they say in the French, right? So I'm going to play a little video. Hopefully this works. Hopefully it works. Hopefully some of you remember the movies too. Hopefully we'll hear the sound.
Will you fight? No. We will run. We will live.
This could be the greatest night of our lives. But you're gonna let it be the worst.
And I guarantee you, we both will find your life. You won't regret walking out, letting them get the best of it.
Well, I'm not going home.
We've got too far!
And I'm gonna stay right here and fight for this lost cause.
A day may come when the courage of men fails, but it is not this day.
The line must be drawn here. This far, no farther.
I'm not saying it's gonna be easy.
You're gonna work harder than you've ever worked before.
But that's fine, we'll just get tougher with it.
If a person grits his teeth and shows real determination,
failure is not an option.
That's how winning is done.
Believe me when I say,
We can break this army here.
And with just one for the giver.
But I say to you, what every warrior has known since the beginning of time,
You've got to get mad.
I mean plumb mad dog man.
if you would be free men, then you must
Fight to fulfill that promise. Let us
Cut out their living guts 1 inch at a time.
And they will know what we can do!
let no man forget how menacing we are. We are lions.
Like a big bear, man.
This is your time. Seize the day. Never surrender.
Victory or death.
That's the battle.
Who's with me?
Clap! Clap! Go back in time! Clap!
All right, let's fly. And gentlemen in England, now abed, shall know my name is the Lord.
But I tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our Independence Day.
Did anyone recognize any of those movies? Okay, good. I didn't put that together even though I live in Los Angeles, so I need to say that. So that's motivational, right? That's something that's motivational, but does that inspire you? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. So I want you to think, just take a moment, because I'm going to give you a little task in a second. Is there anyone who doesn't have any sort of goal or change that they want to make currently in their life? I'm using the opposite because I'm hoping everyone has at least something. Okay, so I know the slides are really small in your handout. Hopefully you can see this. If you can't, I'm going to show it on the board. So there you go. So I want everyone really quickly, you can even write it down on the side of your paper, and I'm going to ask a question. Hopefully someone will be brave enough to answer. So this is called the readiness ruler. So if you were to think about a change you want to make right now, whatever that might be, and you can share it with us if you do decide to participate, or you don't have to share it with us. How important is that change to you right now? Is it from a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being it's very important, and then 0 obviously being not very important? I'm going to show you the next one because we're going to talk about this both together. So the next one, similar scale, but different, is how confident are you in making that change? Same kind of category, 0 to 10, 10 being very, 0 not very. I feel like I'm bending down. I'm short too, but I'm going to sit actually today. I like this. I do teach school, but I'm not going to walk around right now. All right, so let's go. Does anyone want to volunteer? And this is a safe space, okay? At least I think it is. We're all here for the same purpose. So would anyone like to kind of share with us something that they're trying to make a change to? There's no judgment. Yeah?
Gotta stop eating junk food.
Stop eating junk food. What are we talking about, like potato chips and stuff like that?
Potato chips, Cheetos.
Okay. So when it comes to making that change, where did you put yourself on the readiness scale?
5, 6, but it's gotta be higher because I'm gonna have knee replacement, so I gotta lose another 25, so.
Well, 5 and 6 is good. How come you didn't choose a 3?
Because I've already started on the path.
Okay.
I've been really trying to limit myself.
Okay. And then when it comes to confidence, where are you that you can actually fully sustain that change or make that change?
3, 4.
Okay. So that's a little bit lower than the other. How come not a 6 for that? Doesn't need to be a 10. Everyone thinks everything needs to be a 10. It doesn't need to be a 10.
Because sometimes it just, the Cheetos are right for me.
Fair enough. Environmental issues, I see. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else? We'll do one more if someone's willing to share. Exercise? Okay, so are we talking something specific exercise or just all around exercise? How ready are you to make or are you already there? On that scale, where are you? The confidence is what? 8? Okay, that's good. What's gonna get you to a 9, do you think? She's gonna get you to a 9? Are you gonna yell at her? No? Okay. This is really important because I'm gonna touch on something a little bit later, so keep these in mind for yourself, for those 2 numbers that you just wrote down or circled if you can see the thing. More class participation. So when it comes to making change, a lot of people do it based on pros and cons. So why should we make a change? Well, maybe for your example of exercise, it could be maybe to have better cardiovascular health. For other people who exercise, it's to lose weight. When it comes to making changes, just generally speaking, it doesn't need to be based on what you wrote down or what these 2 wonderful people just shared. But give me some of the pros up to making a change. Improved health. Cool. What else? Happiness. Anyone else?
Satisfaction.
Satisfaction. In what sense?
You accomplished what you set out to do.
That's a good one. What else?
Better relationships.
How do you mean?
For my goal, I think I would be happy if I had those better relationships, and so it's part of a process.
Do you think one feeds the other?
Yeah.
Which do you think works in which direction? The achieving the goal will improve your relationships, or your relationships will improve, which will lead you to achieving your goal.
Oh, that's complicated.
Just something to think about. It's a realistic kind of scenario, right? We think that if I make a change, X will happen. This goes back to extrinsic versus intrinsic motivation again. So it's not very clear cut. People say, oh, you should be able to hit your goals, but it's not that clear cut. There's a lot of things in play. There's a lot of factors, right? What are some of the cons? I feel like this might be the easier one for people to answer. Time. Not enough, right? Okay.
Or too high of an expectation.
Too high of an expectation.
Habits, hard to break.
Habits are hard to break.
I will achieve.
Hard to achieve? Is that what you said? Okay. Anyone else? Financial. Some goals can be hard because it's financially, challenging. Okay. Keep those in mind. But here are some impacts on lifestyle changes. And these are just general, okay? And they may relate to scleroderma, they may not. And I didn't put them on for any specific things. These are just examples. Exercise and physical activity. The more we move our bodies, the better, or the decreased risk we have for mortality. We improve our quality of life. This is especially important for people with scleroderma or other rheumatic diseases, especially related to connective tissue diseases. Decreased stress and damage on heart and arteries. That's a lot of cardiovascular, but just decreased stress in general is another one. Increase new blood vessel growth, insulin sensitivity. I know there's patients, not necessarily here, I don't know everyone's manifestations, but there are other comorbidities with having autoimmune diseases. Some people have diabetes, some people have cardiovascular disease. But just making a lifestyle change when it comes to exercise and physical activity can help to improve that, reduce body fat, reduce LDL cholesterol, and lower blood pressure. Not pulmonary arterial pressure, but regular blood pressure. Nutrition and diet. If we make changes in our diets, it improves our lipid levels, metabolic profiles, blood pressure, insulin resistance, inflammatory markers. That's why when someone asked about autoimmune diets, I'm not a nutritionist, so I'm not going to give you nutrition advice. However, there is a lot of research. Every diet has its own thing. You have to find what works for you as an individual. Because there's some people where, I don't know if everyone's heard nightshade vegetables aren't great for people with autoimmune disease. I eat nightshade vegetables. There are some people who can't. There are some people who can tolerate. So it's one of those things you need to figure out what works best for you. And then the other stuff listed there as well. So how do we go about making behavior change happen? Well, some of it is self-control. I don't like the word willpower, but I threw it in there because it's kind of a common nomenclature. Emotional regulation. How do you deal with stress? Some people like to go eat. Some people like to go shop. Does anyone like to shop? I'm a size medium, just in case. Excuse me. This is a really important one. So going back to the extrinsic versus intrinsic motivation, some people tell us what to do. Our doctors are really good at that, right? You need to lose weight. You need to eat a better diet. You need to do this. You need to do that. But a lot of times the reason people don't succeed is because they don't do something that is sustainable because they don't enjoy doing it. So for example, I run. People come up to me and say, oh, that's too bad, I'm not a runner. And I say, it doesn't matter, you don't need to be a runner. What do you like to do? Sorry. I lost my voice yesterday, so everything's scratchy now. So you need to find something that is enjoyable because that will lead to sustained change. Set rewards and goals. Maybe if I don't sit down. I'm going to switch. Nice. Oh no, I'll get feedback. Never mind. So setting rewards and goals. I highlighted this because this is the main part of what we're going to talk about in a moment. Self-monitoring, how you pay attention to that, and what kind of social support system you have. Now, this doesn't always mean it needs to be the person you live with, okay, or that you spend most of your time with. It does help if someone is on the same page as you, because if you ever watch, My 500-Pound Life or whatever it is on TV, why do most of them fail? Is because the other partner can't stick with what they're trying to do to make their success happen. Now, some of your goals might not be related in the sense of you're trying to lose weight, so you need to change your diet along with your partner's diet. But there's other things that you can do on your own where maybe your best friends are social support. Maybe there's someone in this room that's your social support, that's a fellow patient. So it's really important to find those people that can help hold you accountable, but can also support you both mentally as well as emotionally. And then have a means to address relapse. Most of the time we fail. Someone brought up failure. What happens? We stop. We don't even bother going back. We're like, I failed, I'm terrible, I suck, whatever. Worst thing you can do is negative self-talk, but we'll go over that a little bit too. So here's some of the reasons we set goals, right? Lose weight, reduce stress, quit smoking, exercise, so on and so forth. And you guys all have your own reasons why you're setting goals. Maybe it's to live to see your grandchildren graduate college or get married or whatever the case may be. We all have them. I have my own reasons for why I set goals. Why are they so important? Well, without goals, we're moving through life without purpose. Okay? Goes back to your why. It gives us focus, it fuels our drive, it builds character, and above all, it teaches us about ourselves. So why did I decide to run marathons? So going back, if you want to watch my documentary, shameless plug, 45 minutes, Amazon, 99 cents, YouTube, it's free. It was produced in partnership with Project Scleroderma, which is a nonprofit in Philadelphia, if you're familiar with them. They do a lot of stuff around scleroderma awareness, especially during June. My goal was to, initially I wanted to, I wanted to run 8 marathons over the course of 1 year, and my doctor said no. I was like, okay, fine. So we chose 4, and my doctor was also like, make sure you run them in warm weather. Sort of worked, sort of didn't. But not only, the goal was set for a few reasons. When I got diagnosed, I decided to become an advocate for scleroderma, to raise awareness, to raise money, to do things like that. But it was also done to inspire people. And that doesn't mean just you sitting in this room or other patients with scleroderma. It was designed to inspire anyone that needs inspiration. Yes, it's extrinsic, but hopefully it helps them find that intrinsic motivation to be able to set goals for themselves. But it also is a challenge for me. I've been an athlete my whole life, so I always try to do what I can to get myself to the next level or be better than I was yesterday. Any one of those cliches you want to use. Similar when I went back to school. I almost dropped out of my master's program my first term because I was taking a full load and I was working full time and I thought I was going to pass out and not survive. And I was taking biostats, which if anyone is into statistics here, good for you. I had to take stats. I'm decent at it. But it's all about finding your own sort of self in the process. The other thing about intrinsic motivation versus extrinsic is that it also is a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more you succeed, the stronger you feel to be able to take on more challenges. Versus that extrinsic reward, which is you get the carrot dangling in front of you, you get the carrot, and then what's next? Okay? Or you might feel like that's it. You know, you get the raise at work and you're like, that's it? That's how I felt today. I was like, that's it. It teaches us what it means to push through adversity, and we all face adversity in this room. So you're already succeeding at one goal right now, which is great. It teaches us humility. It teaches us how to fight for something we want, and most importantly, it teaches us how to fail. I'm not going to make you do this right now, but we kind of already covered this anyway, so I'm going to skip over this. All right, so goals are not transferable into action unless you write them down. I strongly believe in this. How many of you have things that you want to do in your head and you've never done them? I would assume mostly everyone, unless you're really good in your head is like a notebook and you can remember everything. I have a photographic memory of certain things, so but I still write things down. This was a study by Gail Matthews out of Michigan State. They had 5 groups. One that didn't write goals down, one that did, one that wrote them down and had action behind them, one that wrote them down and told a friend, and one that wrote them down, told their friend, did the action, and also had a weekly update. 76% of those that did all of those successfully achieved their goals. 33% of that was higher than those with unwritten goals. And then these people only had 43% of their goals achieved out of that 33%, so less than half. So it's really important because you get to see it every day, or you can refer back to it. The power of the written word. When you write things down, it sets off a chain of events in your life, and it's something that can continue forever. And then if it's not down on paper, it's just a wish. It's in your head. It's like anything else. Most people who are CEOs of companies or have launched big businesses, they have a business plan. There's no difference in goals. The fun fact is that when you writing your goals down is like a roadmap for your subconscious mind. It gets the back part of your mind to start thinking so that it can make the action easier to obtain without you even knowing it, basically. So when you write things down, you help manifest your goals. All right, has everyone heard of the SMART acronym? 1 minute? No? So writing goals, this is one of the things, and there is some questionable things about it. Some people bring up its question of how accurate it is, but it does work. Basically, it stands for specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. A lot of us say, in New Year's especially, how many make New Year's resolutions? We all make them? No? I'm going to challenge you never to make a New Year's resolution ever again. Because most people fail within 4 weeks, 4 to 6. I challenge you to make a new resolution or a new goal every day. Or at least every so often. It doesn't need to be every day because then it might be unattainable. But, so you need to be specific about what your goal is. So people say, well, I want to lose 40 pounds. Okay, that's a great goal. So when are you going to lose 40 pounds by? How do you measure it? Are you getting on the scale every week? Are you getting on the scale once a day? How achievable is it? So when do you want to get that 40 pounds down by? 2 weeks? I don't think that's achievable. 4 months? Possibly. Average weight loss is 2 pounds per week. 1.5 to 2 pounds is what they recommend. So do the math from there, right? 2 pounds a week times 20 weeks is 40 pounds. 20 weeks divided by 4 is 5 months. So 6 months would be probably a good target, right? And then is a time bound, which we just talked about. So what you want to do though, and this is what we're going to get into, is that our goals sometimes can be very grandiose. I make them too. I was just talking to Stephanie outside about what I want to do with my life now that I'm fully educated, even though I want to go back to school and get 7 more degrees. But I don't think Uncle Sam's going to give me any more money. But your big goal is great, but you're not going to get there unless you take small steps, right? When you go to take a plane to the airport, you don't just automatically arrive at the airport. You have to pack your bag, you gotta get in the car, take a taxi, whatever, go through checkpoint, so on and so forth. So everything needs to be broken down into something that's a little bit smaller, right? So that you can start to build that intrinsic motivation and that reward system, because what's gonna happen if you set this really lofty goal, which everyone does in January, and fail? You're done. It's dead in the water, right? You're not gonna go back to it. So over-committing and under-delivering. Stay positive and realistic. Measurable. Goals should include a GPA. A goal, a plan, and an action steps. Celebrate small victories. I understand that sometimes you don't hit your goal right away or that you don't succeed in what you're going after and it's kind of depressing. But what about something that you did? Say you decided, I'm going to cut out junk food, right? Was one of the examples someone gave. Well, 2 weeks from now, let's say you get back on the junk food train. And you're upset. Well, what happened about week 1? Did you compliment yourself? Did you give yourself a pat on the back because you didn't eat any junk food in week 1? You need to start applauding yourself. I think Dr. Hassett talked about that also earlier this morning, is about taking victory and excitement and gratitude in the things that you have succeeded in. And you can keep this in your little journal, when she talked about 3 things of gratitude every day. It doesn't have to be the same thing, right? You can say, oh, I didn't eat Cheetos today. All right, that's something to be grateful for. Once you start tasting the nectar of success, you'll want more. So I want to add on to this, and this is what I think everyone in life needs, especially these days, is patience, right? So the P stands for put it down on paper. The A says create an action plan. T says tell someone. I, investment. What investment are you making in yourself to make the change happen? That one might be the hardest one to try to figure out. What's your emotional connection to your goal? Are you going to put down notes? I recommend putting Post-its. The best place to do it is your bathroom mirror, because it's usually the first thing you see in the morning. Putting a Post-it there, or your refrigerator, just to remind you of what you're doing, or maybe one of the successes you've had. Check in periodically with yourself, maybe your accountability person, the person that's part of your support system. Make corrections and then continue, and then finally evaluate and embrace your success, even if it's something as small as not doing something for 1 week or even 1 day. So this is for you to do later. What time we got? Okay, I'm still good on time, right? So making a big, it's called BHAG, is the acronym, Big, Hairy, Audacious Goal. So pick one big goal. So everyone said they had a goal, right? Write down your big goal right on the top of the paper, and then figure out, in order to get to that big goal. So someone said exercise, right? So you said you were at an 8 right now, but there's probably still more to do. So what's your ultimate goal in exercise? Maybe it's to lose weight. Maybe it's whatever that might be for you, right? What's your mini goal that's going to help you get there? So think of the mini goal as something week to week or month to month. If you set your goal, your specific and time-bound goal, your big one, to be, let's say, a year from now, sitting back in this room, if the conference is here again next year, sitting back in this room a year from now, if you set a goal today, what's going to be the small little mini goals that get you to that bigger, larger goal 1 year from now? That's what this little worksheet is designed to help you for. And then remember, nothing's ever linear. We all know that, especially with scleroderma, right? Nothing's ever linear. So I consider it like a traffic jam. Chicago has bad traffic, right?
Yeah.
Has anyone been to Los Angeles?
No.
Okay, we have bad traffic. I don't know if you know that or not, but
24/7.
Sure, I'll say 23/7, just because there is that 1 hour you can get around. But anyways, what happens when there's traffic? Does anyone use Waze or Google Maps or any of that stuff when you're driving? It reroutes you, right? So think about this. Think about your goals, the things you want to achieve, the lifestyle changes you might want to make. Think about what's going to be your change of direction if something gets in your way. If you've come into a roadblock, maybe that's something related to maybe your health, right? You have this goal and then, oh my God, something happens. And I hope that doesn't happen to anyone, but God forbid something were to happen. How are you going to still continue on so that you can feel successful and achieve something? Because at the end of the day, we're still all alive, right? I mean, the other thing I think about all the time is I've had friends that have passed away. I had my best friend from college died of a drug overdose 5 years ago. And I've had another friend that just had a heart failure at the age of 38. This was about 10 years ago. Life's never guaranteed, right? So why not live life the best you can? And that's kind of that's my motto when it comes to things. And people are like, well, why do you run marathons? I'm like, because I like to, and I want to. And it also has some other value proposition for others, not just myself. So think about taking a different exit or rerouting yourself, or maybe your goal needs to be a little malleable, right? So, I mean, if you have issues with your hands, for example, maybe at one point you were doing something that you can no longer do, but maybe there's something else that you're passionate about that you can kind of morph that goal into something else so you can feel just as successful or just as happy. Someone said happiness was one of the things that they wanted, right? So rerouting yourself. Finally, success is built on failure. So failures create unexpected opportunities. Failure helps discover parts of yourself that you didn't know about. And it's just a synonym for learning. Does everyone, you're Chicago. What was the Michael Jordan thing? He took how many shots? There's that quote. I always forget the Michael Jordan quote. You miss 100% of the shots. Yeah, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? I'm not a Bulls fan. I'm sorry, I'm a Knicks fan. Go Knicks, we won the other night. So failure is good. It helps you get better. It helps you get stronger. And it doesn't mean you stop or give up. It just means you may change course or take a different road to get to your goal. So here are some of the reasons people fail. We talked about the cons before. Lack of commitment. More on this in a second. It wasn't realistic, measurable, or timed appropriately. Excuses. I caution you to remember when you come up with your con list, which are excuses and which are reality. Okay? I make excuses all the time for some of the things I do or don't want to do. But I remember at the end of the day, after I haven't done them and I'm upset at myself, I remember it was an excuse I came up with because I was lazy that day. Fear, someone mentioned fear. Lacking a plan, that's why I brought up the SMART goal framework and the idea of patience. Giving up when the going gets too tough. Not really ready to make the change. This is the big one. This is kind of that lack of commitment. And we're going to talk about that real quick. So there's something called the trans-theoretical model of change. Has anyone ever heard of it? One person? I would hope you would. Dr. Pool's raising her hand. Most people in clinical or medical side understand this. This is a really big kind of theory when it comes to behavior change. It's one of my favorites. I didn't create it. It's created by Francesca and Di Clemente. Basically, it's where you are on kind of the scale of making change. And some of us say we want to make these changes, especially around New Year's, right? We're like, I'm going to go in and I'm going to have a healthy diet. And we aren't really ready to commit. So the theory is that if you're in this kind of pre-contemplation stage, you're not really truly ready to make a change within the next 6 months. That's why I asked you on that scale of readiness, how ready are you to make a change? Because a 3 might not be that you're quite there. Maybe you're in the 5 area and 6, which is great, because that's kind of like that contemplation or preparation stage. Like you're so close, you're almost there. You just need something to nudge you over that finish line. And for sometimes, some of your goals may never come to fruition because you really don't want to do them. And that's okay, because maybe there's something else you want to do. And then we talk about action, which is what you're doing. It's sustained, and then termination, which really never happens. It's more like maintenance. It's being able to handle things when, a life event happens. When my wife and I separated, it was a long time coming. We're still very good friends, but at the same time, it was a big adjustment to my life. Some other things took a back burner, and that's okay. But how did I work through that is all about kind of making sure that you're able to maintain the changes that you've already made. Any questions on that? Pretty simple. So don't be upset at yourself if you're not really making a change that you want to make. So let's just talk about bringing things all together. So making a permanent lifestyle changes are challenging. Don't be afraid to make a big, audacious goal. It's good. Make sure you have the little steps underneath it though, so that you can get to that big goal and be successful. Goals give us purpose. Have some patience, write down your goals, and don't think everything's going to happen overnight. It might take longer than you actually originally assumed, and that's okay. Find someone who's supportive or someone you can call, even if that's your partner or someone down the street, someone in this room. Like I said, people reach out to me on Facebook and Instagram all the time to tell me what they've done. I get people that say, I signed up for a half marathon. I'm like, that's awesome. And all kinds of other things. So don't tell the whole world though. What happens when we tell everyone? We don't succeed. You know why? Because there's too much pressure most of the time. We overcommit, we underdeliver. So tell someone, 1 or 2 people. Don't go beyond that. Or if anything, keep it close to the vest and don't tell anyone. Make the change happen, and then someone's going to say, hey, you look amazing, or your energy is so high, or whatever the case may be. Distance yourself from naysayers, those negative people. I have been negative. I have, it happens occasionally. I'm honest. So if someone's negative and they keep that negativity, it's going to bring you down. I think Dr. Bassett also brought that up today this morning as well about negative people. Celebrate success, learn from failure. And then there's never, ever a substitution for hard work. If everything was easy, we'd all be in a different place in our life, everyone in the entire world. So I guess my question to you is, after all of that, have you changed your mind? Maybe not, maybe so, but I want you to think about that. And that's it. Thanks. If you guys have questions just in general about lifestyle change, I'm happy to answer, especially as it relates to scleroderma, because I've made a lot in my life over the last 7 years. So, yeah, thanks.